with the second part of our shir. What I'd like to do today is to look at the Ten Commandments, and I found this beautiful sefer, and the sefer is in the library of Rabbi Ben Mintz, and is done basically. What it is it was put together by Rabbi Chil Michal Stern, and what he did was he collects the Talmudic statements or the midrashim on the psukim, and he gives his commentary. So it's a little bit like done in the spirit of the Torah Tamima. So in Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, let's go through the Ten Commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avadim. I am Hashem your God who took you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slaves. So what's the teaching here? So the Mishnah's Rabbi Elazar, chapter 7, Kuf Lamed Ches, explains as follows. Kfiyat HaTovah, meaning what's Kfiyat HaTovah? Is the opposite of gratitude, is ungratefulness, is compared to heresy, The opposite of ungratefulness is compared to heresy. To have gratitude is to have faith in Hashem. To have ungratefulness is to be heretical. And so that's why Hashem says to the Jewish people, I am Hashem your God. All it needed to say was, I am Hashem your God. Why does it say, who led you out from Egypt? It's to tell you that above all else, this is the first commandment. The first commandment is don't be ungrateful. First commandment is don't be ungrateful. Because somebody who is ungrateful is rejecting Hashem. That somebody who is ungrateful is unable to accept the kingdom of heaven. That's such a basic message, but it's such a powerful and simple message. And this is what Rav Stern writes about it. He says, the main aspect of faith is to believe that I am Hashem your God, and that Hashem our God, Hashem is one, without any partner, and he is the master of everything. And whoever has this faith with even greater simplicity will guard the Torah even more powerfully. So that's the basic idea. So he cites here the Maram Chagiz, and the Maram Chagiz writes, therefore, this is what he writes, the Jewish mother stands every morning and she commands her small son to place, or her small daughter, or small child, whoever it is, to place their hand on their eyes and to recite the Kriya Shema. And the mother warns the child, don't take the hand off the eye. Even though from the concept of Shema, a person can technically actually read the Shema even without closing the eyes. So why does the child have to put the hand over the eyes? It's to teach us this idea, listen to this, to believe in God with closed eyes. Because that's what our tradition is teaching us. That's what we learned from the generations beforehand. Don't reject the Torah of your mother. Okay, so basically this is not a commentary on ungratefulness, but this is a commentary on the idea that Hashem is one. And this actually is a very simple and sweet commentary. That's why why do we have to say Shema with closed eyes? To have this concept of the faith in God a little bit with closed eyes. How many years have you been reciting Shema and closing your eyes? Did you ever think about why? That's why. Okay, the next idea that he cites, the next midrash comes from the Sifri, cites by Rabbi Stern. I am Hashem who led you forth from Egypt. Kol hamodeh b'yitzias Mitzrayim, modeh b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whoever admits to the Exodus is basically admitting to the concept of Hashem, and whoever rejects the Exodus is rejecting God. A few years ago, there was I really don't want to criticize. I'm not here to criticize. I don't come to criticize. But there was a very prominent rabbi who decided to give a sermon on the eve of Pesach, saying that the Exodus from Sinai never happened. I don't know if you remember that. Maybe that was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Very prominent rabbi. But here it is. This is an essential aspect of our faith. This is an essential aspect of our faith. Whoever accepts the Exodus of Egypt is accepting really belief in God. And whoever rejects it, it's like you're rejecting the essential aspect of God. Now we go on to the next verse of the Ten Commandments. Lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai. You should not have for yourself other gods other than me. Lo yelecha Elohim acherim. What does this mean? You should not have other gods. Darash Rabbi Simlai. Rabbi Simlai taught. This is from Rabbi Stern. He taught as follows. Rabbi Simlai taught, this comes from the very end of Tractate Makot. And those of you who know, we call our yeshiva's foundation that supports the yeshiva the 613 Foundation. So Rabbi Simlai taught there were this is the source for it. There were 613 commandments that were said to Moses. Sheish me'ot u'shlosh esrei mitzvot nemru lo Moshe. 613 commandments were said to Moshe. 365 negative commandments or prohibitions corresponding to the days of the year, and 248 commandments corresponding to the limbs of a person. Says Rav Hamnuna, what's the verse that teaches this idea? Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha. Yeah, a verse that teaches us this idea is that Torah, Moshe commanded to us as a morasha, as a heritage. Torah, the numerical value is 611. And Anochi and Lo Yelecha mipi agvura shamum. So the word Torah corresponds to 611. And the first, those are the ones that Moshe taught. But I am Hashem your God, and you shall have no other gods other than me. Those were directly heard from the mouth of God. So that's how we get to 613. That's the teaching of Rabbi Simlai. So here is what Rav Stern writes. The Rambam, in his Book of Commandments, what's the Sefer Mitzvos? The Rambam wrote, and he wasn't the first to do it, he wrote a book outlining what he thinks each of the 613 commandments. So in his book, which he calls the Book of the Commandments, he explains that Anochi is included within the 613. And this is a commandment. What's the commandment? The commandment is to have faith in God. Now this is challenged from the Sefer Zohar HaRakia, which challenges this from the Talmud in Tractate Hariot. Which one of the 10 commandments was said first? So the Gemara in Hariot says that this was the commandment not to worship idolatry, meaning they do not have any other gods. So if this commandment to I am Hashem your God is one of the 613, so therefore then how can we say the commandment not to worship other gods was said first? And so the Rambam, and so therefore he explains that the commandment to I am Hashem your God is not just a commandment to have faith in Hashem, but it's also a commandment to distance yourself from idolatry. Meaning to say, when the Gemara in Horios says that the first commandment was not to worship other gods, that's really the commandment of I am Hashem your God. So in addition to the 613 commandments, there are also 7 rabbinic commandments that the sages added onto them. And these are less known, but the way to remember these is the sign or the mnemonic called keter, crown, because the number of letters of the 10 commandments from Anochi, the word Anochi, until Asher Le'erecha, that there are 613 letters from Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzeitichem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Beit Hamadim V'yelcha Elohim Achirim Al Panai V'taseh Pesach Kol Tmuna Asher B'Shamayim Asher Mitachas Haaretz V'tishtachaver Le'am Lo Tavim Ki Anochi Hashem Elokecha Elkanah Pokei Avon Avotal, going all the way until until the last of the commandments, the Chol Asher L'Reyecha, at the end of verse 14, is 613. So that there are not only 613 commandments, but there are 613 letters. And the words Asher L'Reyecha, those 2 words, has 7 letters that includes all the other commandments. So from Anochi until the last 2 words of the 10 commandments, you have 613 letters. And the words Asher L'Reyecha, they encompass 7 letters, and that corresponds to the 7 rabbinic commandments. And the Ramah writes that the 7 rabbinic commandments that were established by the rabbis after the giving of the Torah, they are, does anybody know they are? If you know, you'll let me know, but I'll say them now. The first one is the Megillah, the reading of the book of Esther. The second is the Hanukkah candles. The third is the fasting of Tisha B'Av. The fourth is Hallel. The fifth is the Shabbos candles. The sixth is to make an Eruv. And the seventh is Netilas Yadayim. So these are the 7 rabbinic commandments. Again, what are the 7 rabbinic commandments? Basically, Megillah or Purim, Hanukkah, Tisha B'Av, Hallel, Shabbos candles, making an Eruv, and washing one's hands. Netilas Yadayim. The Sefer Keter Torah, he brought a remes to this. He brought a hint to this, that this is found in the words Asher L'Reyecha. It hints to it. How does it hint to it? So basically, what is the word keter? I should go back. The word keter refers to 620 letters. That's keter. But you have to take out the 7 of Asher L'Reyecha, and that's, you get 613 plus 7. So the words Asher L'Reyecha stand for Aleph is the or the light of Hanukkah candle. The Shin is the Shabbos, Ner Shabbos. The Reish is Reno or chanting of Hallel. The Lamed is Likri, the reading of the Megillah and Purim, and the Reish is Rechitza, washing your hands. The Ayin is for Eruvin, and the Chaf is Kibir Chotecha, is to make a blessing on everything that you benefit from in this world. So that's what is that corresponding to? We already did Shabbos, so that's even on Tisha B'Av, even to make the blessing for Tisha B'Av, basically. Okay, so that's a very, very powerful and beautiful idea that the Ten Commandments hints to this idea of the 613 commandments plus the 7 rabbinic commandments, and he shows the different ways in which it's hinted to. Okay, so now we say another idea that he says, another powerful idea. And he cites here the Mechilta. What does the Mechilta say? Why does it say because it says says do not make an image or a graven image. I only know that you can't do it. That which is already made, how do we know you can't keep it? So it states, you shall not have for yourself. So meaning the commandment is not only not to make it, but the commandment is not to have in your domain, in your possession. I might think that you can allow it to exist in somebody else's house. No, that you're not allowed to have on your possession and should not exist in the world. What does it mean when it says al panai in replace al panai? What do those words mean? Rashi says that it means, we'll just say what Rashi says, it means as long as I am in existence, that you can't say that only that generation was commanded not to worship gods. That's what Rashi says. But he brings down the Midrash that it means asur l'shatev shem shemayim v'davar achar. You're not allowed to combine God's name with another entity. Meaning to say you can't say God has help with something. And so God has to be completely by himself. Okay, so far we've done the first 2 psukim of the 10 commandments. I am Hashem your God, and you shall have no other gods other than me. Now we come up to the 3rd verse of the 10 commandments. Lo ta'aseh lecha patzel chol tmuna. You should not make an image, a graven image or a picture of Asher b'shamayim that's in the heavens above, and it's in the earth below. V'asher b'mayim mitachas la'aretz, and it's in the water underneath the land. What does this mean? Rashi says, Lo ta'aseh lecha patzel. You can't make an image. What does that mean? Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Omer, one who says, come and worship me. Rabbi Meir says you're responsible, and Rabbi Huda says you're exempt. So what does this mean? So Rabbi Stern explains what this Gemara means. When a person makes for himself an idolatry, and he tries to entice other people to worship it, according to Rabbi Meir, he is responsible. And Rabbi Yehuda exempts him. So the what does it mean? So the question is, you see, we have a hard time. What does it mean to worship? So to worship means just through speech. You might think you actually have to bow down, so it's not required. That's his tale. And do not make for yourself a tamuna. Whoever makes an idolatrous image for himself is in violation of 2 commandments, because you should not make and you should not have for yourself. Okay. Now we come to the controversial idea: are you allowed to draw a picture of a sun? It says in this thing, you cannot make any form that's in the heavens from above and that's in the earth from below. What is in the heavens? So the Talmud of Avodah Zarah tells us to draw the sun. It comes to include the sun and the moon and the stars from above, and that comes to include even the angels. So from the simplest verse of the 10 commandments, you see that you're not allowed to make an image of the sun. And indeed, Rav Stern rules that way. And so this is what he says. He says it's prohibited to make a form of the sun and the moon and the angels. But the Shach brings down that since we know clearly that today the idolaters don't worship it, it's not prohibited. And so they challenge this. How was it possible that they made a picture of the sun on the grave of Joshua? As Rashi to the book of Joshua records, that they established a form of a sun on his grave. And this tells us that to tell us why did they make a sun on Joshua's grave, to tell us that he stopped the sun. And whoever passes by the grave says, what a waste, or what a tragedy that the one who stopped the sun is now dead. So we see from here that they did make a sun. So Rashi to the book of Judges writes that it's called, the name of the place is called Timnas Cheres, because they set up a picture of pottery on his grave, meaning to say, woe to the person. So the Rashi Shoftim writes that he established a Tmunas Cheres on his grave. Not that they established the sun, but they established pottery, meaning to say, woe to the person who stopped the sun and is placed in the grave. Meaning to say, according to the different Rashi, they didn't establish a sun on Joshua's grave, but they established a piece of pottery. And because the sun is sometimes called pottery, as it says, Ha'omer l'cheres v'lo yizrach. It says in the book of Job, will you say to the cheres and it will not rise? So therefore, he says that's how we can possibly answer it. But the Sfas Emes proves from our Gemara that also when you make a form of the moon that's not complete, meaning to say like at the beginning of the month, it's also prohibited. Meaning to say, he says, not only prohibited to make a complete moon, it's also prohibited to make a partial moon. And this is different from a menorah branch where you can make 5 branches, and that's like half an image, but a moon, you can't make it. So he basically is very strict about this. He seems to be saying that there's a prohibition, and we have to take it seriously, even though there are some who want to be lenient. He says, look, if you could possibly live your life without drawing the sun, then you would be better off. That's his argument. All right, we've gone through just the first. We've gone through, I am Hashem your God, do not have any other gods other than me, and do not make a form or an image. We'll continue, God willing, later in the week. Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to address.